What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I have a little bit of a public service announcement, and this is regarding franchise mode here in Madden 21. And today, essentially what I want to talk to you guys about is warning you against doing something that's going to potentially basically irreversibly corrupt your franchise or prevent you from creating a franchise to begin with, or giving you draft picks that might be out of order, incorrect stats, so many other issues that you can avoid in franchise mode by just simply not doing this thing. So I've had a couple people comment on my videos and talk about how at times this year there have already been glitches where if you go to the create a new league tab and you try to use the real life roster, it sends you to a blank screen, or if you try to start essentially on a further week forward, let's say you try and start on week 1, it could give you a glitch. Basically, when you go in to create a franchise here, if you click on the use real life roster thing, this is what's going to create a lot of issues for you guys. If you guys didn't have this issue last year, I just want to warn you ahead of time that you just don't want to utilize this use real life NFL rosters feature, because it is the root of all glitches and problems that you could possibly have in a Madden franchise. Now, why is this the case? I don't know exactly what their issues are with their coding that's going on here, but last year, even up till the end of Madden 20, we had issues where if you started using a real life roster in a specific week, you would end up with your draft picks out of order, or the stats wouldn't be correct, or you'd have some type of glitch or some type of bug that would make the franchise essentially unplayable, or would ruin what you're trying to do. Because when you're trying to start with the real life roster, when you're trying to start with the real life stats, the goal of this is to have the realistic stats, the draft picks in the correct order, the realistic players on each team. And I'm sorry to say it, and I just have to tell you guys ahead of time, just don't do this. Don't use this feature. And as much as it stinks to not be able to do this, I avoid using this feature any way that I can. When I start a new franchise, I simply use the active roster. I either use Madden's roster, I download a roster off the Madden share file, or I create my own roster and I start with an active roster. And even if I want to start in the following year, I will start with the active roster and sim forward a year, or I'll start in 2020 and act as if it's 2021. That's the only way around all of these glitches and issues that you're going to have using a real life roster. And I'm sorry to say it, they might have temporarily patched this, but you're going to have issues down the line if you utilize the real life roster option here when you're trying to create a franchise here in Madden 21. I can't tell you guys how many issues there were last year and how many issues there have already been with this feature. At this point in the season, it doesn't make much sense to even try to utilize this feature. Honestly speaking, you probably don't want to even try to utilize this feature until you're down the road in like week 9 and further, maybe even in the playoffs. That way you have the real results simulated up to that point. But realistically speaking, in order to avoid having all of these glitches, having corrupt files, having incorrect stats, having the draft picks out of order, in order to just simply avoid having these issues which come with using the real life roster, all you need to do is utilize the active roster and then go in week by week and simply go to the schedule and sim the wins for the correct teams. It doesn't take a lot of time. You go in, you hit win for the home team or the away team for all the games that week, then you simply move on to the next week, and you can do that to get yourself up to the point of the real NFL season. Now, the only thing that's going to be slightly incorrect for you is the actual stats of the players in that franchise, but the stats will be relatively similar because of the fact that you simulated the correct wins, and so the correct teams are going to be getting positive stats and positive attribute boosts and things like that, so it's not going to be far off. Personally speaking, I just want to let you guys know that the way to go is always to use active roster, because that's how you're going to avoid any issues or any problems that could potentially arise, that have arisen in past years, or new problems that could potentially arise that could make your franchise unrealistic or unplayable. like I said, I just want to emphasize this and put out a public service announcement because I've gotten multiple comments about it, and it's been broken since last year, at the very least. And I've been telling people not to use it since last year, but I never made a dedicated video for it. And if I make it early enough here, hopefully you guys will know to just simply avoid utilizing this feature and just use the active roster, simulate the games appropriately to get up to the correct week. It will only take you guys a few minutes. Trust me, it really doesn't take that long, and you'll have a much more productive franchise that way without risk of having the same issues where things can go wrong, things can get corrupted, and things can turn into bigger issues than they need to be. Like I said, if you're trying to have a realistic franchise, you're probably trying to avoid issues like the draft picks being out of order. I can't tell you how many times last year we had to restart franchises because we tried to use the real life roster feature and it gave us draft picks that weren't in the correct order. Like, what's the point in starting a real life NFL roster or a real life NFL franchise in the playoffs or something like that whenever you get to the off season and all the draft picks are out of order? It creates a lot of problems. Please, guys, just avoid it. Just don't utilize this feature. I hope that this helps you guys out in some way. I hope that this helps somebody to avoid trouble and avoid these issues. And if it does, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Make sure you comment down below with anything else you guys could use help for. And I honestly, if this helps anybody avoid issues, if it helps just a single person avoid having these glitches and roster corruption and issues that we've had in the past, this video is worth it. So hopefully this finds you guys well. I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you guys have a good night. See ya.